I'm Alan Johnson, psychologist and 33-year teacher in the Department of Family Medicine, Charleston.
I'm Frank Dornfest, family physician, retired at this point, teacher in a number of different places.
I'm Laurel Milberg, psychologist, longtime Balint leader and teacher.
Mary Hall, family physician, longtime Balint leader and teacher.
Paul Scott, also longtime Balint leader and teacher. And psychiatrist.
Clive Rock, longtime Balint leader and family physician.
Rich Addison, psychologist, private practice, and behavioral medicine and family medicine residencies, and qualitative research too.
The formation meeting and how you guys put it together, and Paul and I.
Meeting, most of us weren't at.
Well, you were at it.
Of course you would.
Which formation meeting?
Seattle.
Oh, Seattle.
Oh, I was thinking long before Seattle.
Okay, you want to start there? Do you want to start with the Adam and Eve? I don't know. Where do you want to start?
In the beginning?
Let's start at the beginning.
But I thought we would start with the Seattle meeting, but you can start before that. Would you like to talk about what you were doing before the Seattle meeting?
Well, it wasn't without you or Frank or Paul and Clive, and it seemed to me as though the residents were key in contacting Society of Teachers of Family Medicine and say, can we have a spot? And all of us would sit around and wait and say, have you heard yet? Have you heard yet? And oh yeah, we got a spot.
The students contact them?
Residents contacted.
So that was how you got that theme day. Is that what you're talking about?
Before
That, Mary Graham came up to me and said,
Yes.
just come from an SDFM and had a Balint presentation. We do it much differently and we think better.
Okay.
Why don't you, blinking will go and present? Because we thought we were doing, that nobody'd be interested.
Was that the theme day?
No, that
this
was
long
then we
before.
put on
Yep.
the
Which
regional
one was
ones.
that?
Oh, yeah.
Those were
that's
those were
right, yeah.
regional ones,
Regional
and then
ones.
Stock came with me to one of the regional ones.
Right.
And then we said, to hell with it, let's go for bust and go for a theme day.
But somebody knew somebody who was on the committee.
Yeah, and that was Ron, I think.
No, the second one on the committee was one of our former residents.
That's right.
And I went up to him after the first theme day and said, look, we need a favor from you. We need a second theme day. This was okay, but we want to try and see whether we can attract a select group of people so as to be able to form a society.
Okay, but Clive,
I don't
was the
remember any of
second
that.
theme
I
day in
was speaking to that
1990?
guy.
Who was
Or was
that?
I forget his name. He went to Texas or something like that. You'd know him.
But I don't know that we had two theme days.
Yes,
I
we
don't,
did.
because when you had a theme day, it was 1990, and that's when Paul and I found out about it.
Right, that we consider the official beginning.
And that, but
From our point
if you had another theme day at
We had a theme
STFM,
day
which
that-
I attended every single
It was next
freaking
year. You were
year
there.
then you
since
didn't come to it.
1978, I
No,
It was
She
did.
was
in
there. She was
89.
there.
We went to a theme. We had a theme day. It's the confidence to say that we need another one. That's when I went to speak to Michael Krauss.
Oh, Michael.
Ah, that's what it was.
Yeah,
was Michael, yeah.
Michael Krauss.
Narrative therapy, you go right up to the edge and the name comes out.
So I spoke to Michael Krauss and said, listen, you've got to do this for us.
Yeah.
He was a former resident of ours.
Yes.
I said, you've got to do this for us. We need another meeting because we've got to use you one more time.
Right.
And we won't do it again.
Right.
To
But we
establish.
lied.
Until next.
Yeah, but I said we won't nag you or ask for special favors.
So that's why they kicked us out, because you said this is the last time. No, seriously. And their board got together and they decided we needed our own organization, and
And
if we weren't
that's-
ready, tough.
And that's what pushed us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That we had our own, we need to make our own foundation. We couldn't keep relying on STFM.
right.
Yeah.
And so what I said yesterday about naivety was that I really didn't know who was out there. Were I to have known that the two of you were out there, there is no way I would have had the temerity
And
to do
rightfully
it.
so, I might
So
say.
here's our
but as I discovered,
Yeah, here's our backstory.
but that is true.
So we're out there in the hinterlands, right, in western Pennsylvania, and we're doing regional, Northeast Regional SDFM things together, and we did several before 1990. One in New York, I think.
Buffalo comes to mind.
Yeah.
Terrible places, but okay, so we did them and they were successful. And then we get this notice that you guys were doing this, and we went, who the hell do they think they are? We're showing up, okay? We're showing up. And we're gonna make
So
sure.
you didn't know we'd done Western regionals before that?
Actually, I
And
didn't.
other regionals? Oh, okay.
No.
And nor
But
did
you
we
did-
know that
yes, I-
anybody else
Yeah, I
was
didn't know.
doing
I
the
did
work.
not know of any of your existence.
We did not
And we
know.
didn't know about yours either.
But look what happened.
Can I introduce you to each other?
See, now we've not only forgiven you, but we've grown to love you. So.
Ah.
But we loved you people from the beginning.
Oh, God.
I doubt-
So
I
first,
doubt
so
that.
first we had this friendly competition, right? And then, so everybody was included. It was very nice. I think everybody who was there, we all ended up being an officer of
Yeah,
some
you
sort,
were
right?
starting to take notes already, I remember.
Is that how I got stuck with secretary treasurer?
Yes.
The two suckiest jobs.
You
in the-
volunteered.
Edit that. The two
You
suckiest
volunteered,
jobs.
don't, no, she
So
always
you were
says that.
secretary treasurer?
Yes, yes,
Yes,
I
she
was.
was.
Thank you.
Yes, she was. President, vice president.
And we talked on the phone a
A
lot.
lot, yeah.
Yeah.
But hang on, president and vice president of what at that point?
Well,
We called
were
it
not-
the American Balance.
We did,
Society.
okay.
We
of
did.
the
But we weren't
society,
officially incorporated.
And that was 1990, to be clear, for the taping. But
Right.
the actual society was begun.
Because after we did
At
demonstration groups that
At
you
Seattle.
guys ran, and we were in, it stopped, and there was a meeting. It was like the first, right?
At the
Organization
very
meeting is
end,
what I
at the
remember.
very end.
Yeah.
Where was that?
In
Seattle.
Seattle, we said, look, at the end of it, and people were talking, we said, stay behind,
Yeah.
let's get ourselves
Right.
organized. This was the purpose of the
Today's
theme day.
Right, it
That
was
was
just
the
like
exact
John's thing,
purpose
it's
of
like,
it.
can we make a commitment now to start this thing?
Actually, my recollection is that 90% of the people
Left
left
the
at that
room.
point.
Yes.
And the only people who stayed were those who had ambition to be officers.
And here we are.
And
And here we are now.
Thousands of
Am I
years
not
later.
correct?
Oh, I
Is
think
that-
you're
That's
right.
exactly it.
That's what happened. There were
I
only
know.
like 8 of us left in the room.
We didn't elect ourselves with a larger group present? I think we did.
I
No, sir.
remember,
There
I
was
remember
no
being there.
election.
I'm not sure that that
No
was the
election.
meeting, and I
No,
thought, who
sir.
are these people?
Yeah, that's what we thought too.
And how soon are they going to be done so I can politely leave?
Right, exactly.
You're making that up, you weren't there.
I probably
You
am
were
making
not
it
there.
up. I might not have been.
Okay, so then we started and we talked on the phone, but then we're doing regionals still, right?
Yes.
So
But
talk
now we were
about that.
collaborating.
Yeah, we were collaborating. What happened between 1990 and the first few years?
Well, 94 was the meeting
93.
in Charleston.
93, the first intensive.
Wild Dunes.
93 was the Wild Dunes,
Yes.
okay.
Was Wild Dunes, and was that the next?
And what
thing?
happened in between were
There-
newsletters.
There was a moment
That's
where
right.
we started
Bob
weekly.
Dozer.
Bob
We started-
Dozer.
Bob
and-
Dozer started the newsletters.
Exactly.
And
he
we did
the
have newsletter. We wrote like a lot of newsletters,
there
and
were
they're
a lot
all
of-
gone. I have no idea where they
Oh,
are.
You're kidding.
I've got
No.
them.
You've got
I
them, or
have
I've got them.
copies of some of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, I got copies of some.
You gave
And I sent,
yours to
To
me,
me, to you,
and I gave some of mine to somebody else.
to Lisa.
I gave all of mine copies to Lisa, and I made copies for myself.
Good.
Yeah.
So you're the only one with a set of copies of those newsletters now.
Wow.
So then we're coming together in 93 and we're going to have an intensive and we are going to actually show each other our work.
And that,
I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
I was going to say, what was very important about those first two intensives is that we had a super audiovisual department at the university, and they did professional videotaping, and we made available for two of those intensives videotapes to people who had
I had those
participated.
for years.
I
still have them.
Who would
I think I
use
do
them
too.
under restrained conditions, and that is that they weren't ever to be commercially broadcast, and they'd be shown only before a professional audience with the understanding that names and any cases, similarities that they thought might be known in any way would not leave that room.
And that's the first time I remember working with you. The Wild Dunes was You guys put that on.
You were there too, Rich.
No.
And we had, there was a
No, you were-
huge fishbowl that was
Yes.
like terrifying, and we all had things that we were supposed to watch, a la that usual thing. You
Yes.
watch the group, you watch the presenter, you watch the, and we did all that. And then we were in groups, and I remember you from
My
the
face
group.
being on a big screen.
No, you were
no, no.
in a group with me, I
That
think.
comes in.
I was in a group with you.
Completely.
And the thing that we also did at that time was have review of those videotapes. So participants got to see themselves, so that we allowed one session for reviewing the tape of your group. And and then debriefing that.
But yeah, and we had quite a few groups.
Yes, there were like 5, 6 that were videotaped.
No, just that were met.
You know, I've never
Just
thought of
one from each group.
Yeah.
One from each.
I've never thought of it this way before, but I would say at this moment, and it was your plan, the intensive, Alan, that really is why we're here today. Because that generated so much energy. A combination of terror and rage and all kinds of stuff got stirred up. And that gave us something to move forward with. Like that.
You remember how we yelled at him?
Of course.
We screamed at
I
him.
would never yell at
Fishbowl.
Alan.
The fishbowl.
We
thing.
yelled.
Yeah.
Because he was so we saw him as being so constipated about the goddamn tapes and the permission.
And he
Yes.
was right.
Yes.
And he did it so
And he
well.
stuck, he dug his heels in, he
Oh,
would not
God
move.
bless
I thought, how can Clive work with this guy?
Well, I remember going home from that weekend so jazzed up.
Am I not right?
Yeah, and
That's where.
and saying to a friend, I can't explain to you what just happened. I found my professional
Me too.
place. I found my hole in life. I filled the hole in my life. And she said, that's how I am about music.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
said, now you understand how I am about music. I said, that's how I'm about that.
I remember you telling this story before, absolutely.
Yeah. I
Now,
really-
It was that
Were you
I
a resident in
realized-
his program? I can't remember.
Yes.
his.
So I remember you as a resident.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what is fascinating to talk about our resistance to development, would you believe when I began to coordinate intensives that people became very concerned when I suggested that we have 2 in 1 year? And the arguments came back to me, oh my God, you can't do that because people will go to that one and they won't come to mine.
Yes.
And so we
We're
literally...
still having those
still
arguments.
goes
Are you
on.
kidding?
Still goes
So
on.
We're still
I've-
talking about
Every-
that.
I'm not
every
dealing
new
with
thing
it,
is
but it's
about
part of
that.
our history. I thought it was so key.
So part of our history was how we managed competition, because that was a critical element. We came in competitive, right by
Yes,
mistake.
we did.
By pure mistake.
Well, it was like a bunch of little
Yeah.
peers, siblings,
Yeah,
who were all
Competition
scratching for their...
and ambition go together,
Yes.
so
Right.
it's no accident.
But do you
Because-
remember, somewhere along the line, I could look it up because I can't remember, it's on the wall. So we went to Mary's place. And that's to your residency, and you held the thing with what's her name,
With
Penny Williams.
Consultant.
And we put dots on the wall,
Yes.
and we made a mission statement, and we did all that groundwork. But basically, what we were hashing out was how we could be an organization that was
Professional.
fair and professional, and not just, well, I got 6 invitations and you got 3,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
doing, and
that's
this is my portfolio, and I'm Balint USA, and that was when we had to.
It's somewhere
But
around
remember,
there.
part of the angst was that we were going to hell in a handbasket before that. And I remember suggesting that we get a consultant, and I remember Clive saying, if it costs us our last cent, we've got to do this, otherwise we're going to die as an organization.
That's what I
That wasn't
just
the
said
last
a
time
year
you said
ago
that.
about the consultant.
You're always saying that.
You always say that.
We can
Run it
depend
up
on
the
you.
flagpole.
That's already-
Well, I knew I could rely on him to say it if I made the suggestion.
But you know what we
Just
didn't,
feed him the right line and
Right.
but
bing
what,
bang.
but what we didn't
Thank you,
expect,
Gracie. Yeah.
which really worked, was the competition between Charleston and Pittsburgh. There was, but Pittsburgh thought that you guys thought you had the right way, and you were suspicious that we didn't have the right way.
didn't know it was Santa Rosa.
And we
And
certainly,
Santa Rosa.
and Santa
Little
Rosa.
did we
And
know.
as far as we were concerned, we definitely had the right. We all
Yeah.
were convinced that we had the right way. And that became a creative tension. And out of that creative tension, all the things that we're talking about that we hold dear emerged.
Okay,
If we were all on the same page, we'd have been a boring
Would have been
and
boring.
dead organization.
All right, that's on one hand has to do with energy and
Right.
and going forward. On
Team
the
of
other
rivals, I
hand,
think it's called.
team of rivals.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you want to be an organization, you have to figure out how to do some codified things, which has always been another
Big
stress.
tension.
Big tension. So
Don't
he wants-
hammer me with the
He
details.
wants to jump in, and I want to go, okay, when you're through jumping, do we have any boundaries?
We'll worry about
or
that later.
regulations or any?
And that's when we wrote the bylaws.
And
Well,
that, and that
no,
is
we
your,
stole- we
that is
stole them.
your unique contribution.
Yes,
Analogous.
With many other
Yes, I
people's
understand.
help as well.
Compulsivity. No, what happened is we took the British Balance Society, the Balance Society's bylaws completely, to the point where we even used some of that archaic language like subscriber.
But we did that before the ABS. We did that during our FTFM days.
No,
No, we did
no,
not.
no.
No, sir.
We did that after. We did it after the retreat at her place.
really?
We stole their entire thing. We
Okay.
rewrote it a little bit. And that was it for a long time,
Okay.
until the Margos and I sat down on their porch for 3 days and redid the bylaws having to do with council turning over and,
Yeah.
and much more oriented
Sure,
toward
sure.
who we were
Our
at that time. But it
situation.
was many years in.
Years
But
later.
we did do okay on the British bylaws for quite a while.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was okay. But just my thing about what you're saying, I did not feel, once we got together as a society,
No.
that there was a
No.
competition.
I agree.
Between the
No,
two
I agree.
cities. I never did, actually.
I never
but
did.
in
And I
the
disagree
early
with you
days-
strongly. I felt that there was competition between individuals to move up in their organization, to present their work, to get opportunities inside and outside of the organization. I think it was a natural
The
competition.
opportunity.
There was,
And
there
I
was
think we managed
competition at
it.
many levels.
And I think we
yes.
managed it pretty damn well. And I think, as you say, if there hadn't been that level of competition, it would have been boring as hell and it would have died.
But we were passionate.
Well, I can tune into my mindset at Wild Dunes. And although I may have presented myself as a person who knew what he was doing, and I had been doing it for 20 years by then, amazingly, I was terrified that I would be shown up
Oh, yeah.
as a poser by all these other people who really knew what they were doing. And I worked with that for a long time.
And what a pity we couldn't talk, because everybody was, when people got to Sarah, Pennsylvania for the first credentialing, we were all petrified.
Yes.
I think I could imagine what would have been said about me here. I held the meeting, I brought everybody together, and I had no clue what I was doing.
Well, that's a very, I mean, we channeled that today in our group. That's a very important feeling to remember when you do a resident group.
Oh,
or any
absolutely.
group, right?
Absolutely.
Because that's exactly what somebody's feeling the moment before they present a case.
Yes, exactly.
Or
And-
participate in the group.
And I remember we were in each other's group in Sarah, and you were one of the founders and leaders, and you presented a case. And when you made yourself vulnerable like that helped me join and be part
And
of the
that's
organization.
that's what cut through all the competition. It's our willingness to trust each other.
Yeah. And to share our material that bothered
Yes.
us.
And
Yes.
before SEER, then we had to develop, and several of us worked on that, all of those forms.
Well, but not only the forms, before the forms, the whole idea of whether we were going to credential leaders
Right.
at all
Who
was a
were we
big
to?
struggle. I was there by that point.
Right.
And Frank, this was you kept talking to me in Santa Rosa. And
Yeah, I was
remember,
very frustrated about it. In my supervision with Enid, I got to know her to some extent. And she and Michael had apparently struggled with us for years, which is why they formed the International Balint Federation, was to try and control France and a couple of other countries which were doing wacky stuff, they felt. And so there was like an obligation, well, I'll credential you, but eventually, I'm going to want something from you, and that's I want you to work on the local level and the international level in creating some kind of credentialing process. She never used that word, but some way of limiting the kind of horrible things that have happened.
Yeah, and I remember very clearly being extremely keen that we have a credentialing process, and I remember people wondering who of us is going to decide the competencies of a competent leader, and those which were observable and measurable. And I remember looking at Alec Chessman's evaluation sheet for his students, and I found by a lucky coincidence that it touched a lot of the bases we were interested in. These were all observable. And politically, I felt it was absolutely important to bring Laurel on board. And I felt that without Laurel being on board, we wouldn't get it. And she'd see through the bullshit if it was bullshit. And I remember she and I were invited to Memphis. And I took a copy of that along with me. I was dead scared to show it to her because I felt that if she rejected it, the whole idea would be torpedo. And I was absolutely delighted when she looked at it and saw possibility in it. It wasn't the finished document, but she could see possibility in it and could imagine it. And then came home quite elevated, and Alan and I spoke about how do you sort of get down to it, and Alan had his ideas about an intensive based on his experience at a Taekwondo boot camp. And his first intensive was indeed that Taekwondo boot camp. And I remember
Glad you didn't tell me that at the time.
I know, it's great.
Frank's metaphor at the time was
Never would've gone.
that we are overfed. The food here is a metaphor. We are being overfed with food, and we are overfed with activities. There was no room to catch one's breath. So that was my sort of
So I was on the other